David and Goliath, the battle in the Valley of Elah. In the land of ancient Israel, in a time of wars and kings, a young shepherd named David gazed across the Valley of Elah. There, on the opposing hillside, stood the army of the Philistines, their banners fluttering in the wind, their armor glinting in the sun. For 40 days, tension had gripped the valley, and every day, a voice boomed like thunder across the hills, a voice belonging to Goliath. Goliath was no ordinary warrior. Towering over 9 feet tall, clad in bronze armor so thick it would take an ordinary man just to lift it, he seemed more monster than man. His spear was like a weaver's beam, and his shield-bearer marched ahead of him, a shadow to his colossal form. Each day, Goliath would descend into the valley and issue his challenge. A single combat, one-on-one, to decide the battle. "Choose your champion," he bellowed, his voice echoing off the cliffs. "Let him face me. If your man defeats me, we will serve you. But if I defeat him, you will serve us." The men of Israel trembled at his words. Even King Saul, who stood head and shoulders above all his people, found no soldier willing to face the giant. The fear was palpable. In their camp, the soldiers spoke in whispers of Goliath's invincibility, his impenetrable armor, his unmatched strength. It seemed there was no hope until the shepherd boy arrived. David was young, the youngest of 8 sons of Jesse. He had not come to fight, but to bring food to his brothers who served in Saul's army. As he approached the camp, he overheard Goliath's taunts. The defiance in the giant's voice angered him, but even more, it pained him that none in Israel would rise to defend the name of the Lord. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" David asked, his voice steady and full of conviction. Laughter rippled through the camp. A shepherd? A boy? Facing a warrior of Goliath's stature? Even his eldest brother Eliab scolded him for his boldness. "Go back to your sheep, David. You don't understand the danger here." But David would not be deterred. Word of his defiance reached King Saul, and soon David stood before the king. Saul studied the boy, noting his youth and lack of battlefield experience. "You cannot go against him," Saul said. "You are but a boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David's gaze was unshaken. "Your servant has fought both lions and bears while tending my father's sheep," he said. "When they came to take a lamb from the flock, I struck them down. This Philistine will be like one of them. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the bear will deliver me from this Philistine." Moved by his words, Saul relented and offered David his own armor. But when David tried it on, the weight was unbearable. "I cannot go in these," he said, removing the heavy mail. "I will face him as I am." Armed with nothing but his shepherd's staff, a sling, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby brook, David descended into the valley. Goliath spotted him and laughed, the sound rolling like thunder across the plain. "Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks?" he sneered, spreading his massive arms. "Come here, and I will give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." But David stood firm, his voice unwavering. "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day, the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and all the earth will know that there is a God in Israel." With that, David reached into his pouch, taking out a single stone and loading it into his sling. He began to whirl it, faster and faster, until the sling hummed. Goliath charged, his armor glinting in the sun, his massive frame shaking the ground with each step. But before he could strike, David released the sling. The stone flew straight and true, striking Goliath in the forehead. The giant stumbled, swayed, and then fell with a thunderous crash to the ground. A stunned silence fell over both armies. The Philistines, who moments before had jeered and cheered their champion, now turned and fled in terror as the Israelites arose with a roar of victory. David stood over Goliath, taking the giant's own sword to finish the battle. the shepherd boy had done the impossible. David's victory was not one of strength, but of faith. He showed that courage rooted in trust, not in oneself but in a higher power, could overcome the greatest of obstacles. That day, the name of David began to echo through Israel, not as a mighty warrior, but as a boy who believed, and through that belief, changed history.